You know those days where you actually enjoy what you're doing at work? You're maybe in your flow, but then by the time you log off, you're just utterly depleted.
Yeah, or the flip side, right? You're completely absorbed, time vanishes,
Mm.
and even though you worked hard, you finish feeling kind of energized.
Exactly. And well, it turns out these aren't just random good or bad days. There's actually a real science behind why we experience work like this.
That's right. And in this deep dive, we're going to explore a really powerful framework for understanding these experiences, burnout and work engagement.
Okay.
Our guide is a fantastic review article from the Annual Review of Organizational Psychology and Organizational Behavior. It's called Job Demands Resources Theory, 10 years later.
Ah, okay. Bakker, Demerouti, and Sanz-Vergel.
Yep, those are the authors. Think of it like they've synthesized a whole decade of research for us. Really useful stuff.
Nice. So for this deep dive, we're really zeroing in on this one article. It sounds like a gold mine.
It really is. It distills years of research into what drains us or what gets us totally fired up about work.
So our mission here is what exactly? To pull out the key insights.
Precisely. We want to give you a clear picture of, what causes burnout, what fuels engagement, and this big theory, the job demands resources theory that sort of ties it all together.
Got it. Like a shortcut to understanding these big ideas without getting totally bogged down in academic jargon.
Exactly. Aiming for those aha moments that maybe resonate with your own work life.
Okay, let's jump right in then. We hear these terms all the time, burnout and work engagement, but what do they really mean, scientifically speaking?
Well, burnout first popped up in the 70s. Freudenberger talked about it as a state of mental and physical exhaustion caused by one's professional life, even mentioning an extinction of motivation.
Wow, extinction of motivation, that's strong.
It is, but the definition that really took hold in research came from Maslach and Jackson in the early 80s. They framed it as a syndrome with three parts.
Okay, what are they?
First, emotional exhaustion, just feeling totally drained, used up by work. Second, depersonalization, which is like developing a cynical or detached response to your job or the people you work with.
Sort of like putting up a wall.
Yeah, kind of a psychological distancing. It might feel protective, but it erodes connection and empathy. And third, a reduced sense of personal accomplishment, feeling like you're not effective, like your work doesn't matter.
Okay, so it's much more than just feeling tired. It's that combo, drained, detached, and feeling ineffective. Has that definition stayed the same?
It's evolved, yeah. Researchers refined it. In the 90s, some felt cynicism maybe captured that detachment better than depersonalization, especially towards the work itself, not just people.
Oh.
Others focused more on the core exhaustion plus disengagement. And more recently, the idea has broadened. It now often includes physical fatigue, cognitive weariness, that brain fog feeling, and even measurable cognitive impairment.
So a richer picture, recognizing it hits us on multiple levels, physically, mentally, emotionally. What about prevalence? How common is this?
Well, data from around 2015 suggested maybe 10% in Europe, but higher, like 17% elsewhere. Interestingly, in the U.S., younger workers seem to report it more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one study around 2018 found about 28% of millennials said they felt burned out frequently versus maybe 21% of older generations. And it's significant that the WHO, the World Health Organization, recognized it in 2019.
Right, I remember that as an occupational phenomenon.
Exactly, based on Maslach's three dimensions, though they stress it's not a medical condition itself, but it shows the growing recognition.
Still, with all these variations in definition, you mentioned 13 different ones. Is there still debate?
Oh, definitely. The article points that out. How best to define it, how best to measure it, keeping in mind these tools aren't for clinical diagnosis. And a really crucial point is the overlap with depression.
How strong is that overlap?
Very strong. Meta-analyses show correlation around 0.80. That's high. It suggests they share a lot of common ground, maybe even biologically.
Wow. That really hits home that this isn't just about work stress. Okay, so that's the heavy side, burnout. What about the positive side, work engagement?
Right. Work engagement research kind of grew partly as a response to all the focus on burnout. Kahn, back in 1990, had this great description, the harnessing of organization members' selves to their work roles.
Harnessing their selves. What does that mean?
It means bringing your full self, your physical energy, your cognitive focus, your emotional investment, your mental presence to your work, really pouring yourself into it because it feels meaningful.
So is it just the opposite of burnout then? No exhaustion, no cynicism, feeling effective?
Maslach and Leiter did frame it that way later on, energy versus exhaustion, involvement versus cynicism, efficacy versus ineffectiveness. Makes
Yeah.
intuitive sense, right?
Yeah.
But another really influential definition came from Schoeffele and colleagues in 2002. They described it as a positive, fulfilling, work-related state of mind characterized by vigor, dedication, and absorption.
Vigor, dedication, absorption. Okay, let's unpack those. Vigor sounds like energy.
Yep. High energy, mental resilience, willingness to put in effort, persisting through difficulties. Dedication is about strong involvement, feeling your work is significant, feeling enthusiastic, inspired, challenged.
And absorption, that sounds like flow state.
Very much like it.
Wow.
Being fully concentrated, happily engrossed, time just flies by. You're really into what you're doing. So engagement is really this active, positive connection.
That definitely sounds like the goal state for most people at work. Is it common?
It seems more common than burnout, thankfully. Data from Europe around 2015 showed over 70% felt energetic or dedicated often, and over 75% felt absorbed often.
That's encouraging.
It is. Though interestingly, that absorption component can overlap with workaholism, the excessive compulsive side of working. Also, engagement is seen as more of an active, high-energy well-being state, maybe different from job satisfaction, which can be calmer contentment.
And are they definitely opposites, burnout and engagement, or can you feel bits of both?
That's still debated. Some analyses suggest the direct link between them changing over time isn't super strong, meaning they might not be perfect opposites on one single continuum. Maybe they're related but distinct states.
Fascinating. Okay, so we have these two key states. What pushes us towards one or the other? What are the main drivers, according to the research?
The research points strongly to two main categories of factors. Things in the situation, the job itself often called job demands and job resources, and things about the individual, like personality.
Let's start with burnout. What situational factors are the biggest culprits?
Consistently, over decades of research, it's job demands. Things like unclear roles, role ambiguity, conflicting expectations, role conflict, general stress, heavy workload, constant time pressure.
The usual suspects.
Pretty much. Meta-analyses show these reliably predict exhaustion and that detached, cynical feeling across many jobs. Interestingly, job resources like having autonomy or support seem less strongly or consistently linked to preventing burnout directly, though lack of resources is sometimes linked to cynicism.
So it's really the weight of those demands that seems to be the primary driver of burnout.
It seems that way, especially for exhaustion. Longitudinal studies tracking people over time often find that more job control and workplace support help protect against exhaustion,
Okay.
while high workload and job insecurity tend to increase the risk. For some other things like conflicts, lack of feedback, long hours, the evidence linking them directly to burnout is a bit more mixed or limited, according to this review.
Mm.
But low rewards, feeling like your effort isn't recognized or compensated, that does seem linked to the reduced personal accomplishment part of burnout. The big picture is that chronic exposure to demands wears you down, leading to exhaustion.
Makes total sense, that constant drain. What about us as individuals? Are some people just more prone to burning out?
Absolutely. Personality plays a big role. Research, like meta-analyses, shows neuroticism, the tendency towards anxiety, worry, negative emotions, strongly predicts burnout.
Okay, that makes sense.
On the flip side, extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, these tend to be protective. Emotional stability seems key for buffering against exhaustion and cynicism. Extroversion seems more linked to maintaining that sense of personal accomplishment.
Interesting breakdown.
Yeah, and studies in specific fields confirm this. Like, for mental health pros, low emotional intelligence and stability are linked to burnout. For faculty, things like hardiness, good coping skills, intrinsic motivation help protect them.
So our inner resources and traits really matter in how we handle workplace stress. Okay, let's flip back to engagement. What kind of work situations fuel that positive state?
Here, the story is really about job resources. These are the aspects of the job that help you achieve goals, reduce demands, and stimulate growth. Things like autonomy, having a say in how you work,
Control, yeah.
social support from your boss, from your colleagues, getting feedback, feeling like your work matters, task significance. These consistently come up as strong predictors of engagement.
And are resources more powerful for engagement than demands are for burnout?
Some research suggests yes. The positive impact of resources on engagement often appears stronger than the negative impact of demands on burnout, which is quite hopeful, actually.
That is hopeful. It suggests creating the right environment can have a huge positive effect. Are there specific types of resources that are particularly important?
Well, studies looking over time often highlight autonomy and control and social support as key drivers. They've looked at resources coming from different levels, too. Your team, your leader, the whole organization.
And where do they matter most?
Resources at all levels seem to help. But organizational level resources, things like the overall culture, opportunities for development, fair procedures, these seem to have the strongest long-term impact on sustaining engagement.
Ah, so the big picture stuff really counts for keeping people engaged over time.
Definitely. One review specifically highlighted that developmental resources, chances to learn, grow, advance your career, have the strongest link to engagement. People want to feel like they're progressing.
That resonates. Okay, and individually, what kind of people tend to be more engaged?
Similar to burnout, individual differences matter a lot. Meta-analyses show that positive traits are linked to engagement. Optimism, self-efficacy, that belief you can succeed conscientiousness, general positive affect, having a proactive personality.
So a generally positive, capable outlook.
Exactly. These personal resources seem strongly linked. Other things, too, like emotional intelligence, openness to experience, extroversion, being well-adjusted, they all predict higher engagement.
So it's this interplay, again, a resourceful environment, and resourceful individuals create the best conditions for engagement. Now let's talk consequences. What happens downstream from burnout or engagement, health-wise, job-wise?
The consequences of burnout especially can be really serious. Health-wise, it's linked to chronic issues. Sleep problems, headaches, infections like respiratory or gastrointestinal ones, even potentially increasing the risk for type 2 diabetes or catching colds more easily.
So it weakens your system.
It seems to. And one study mentioned in the review had a really alarming finding, linking burnout to increased mortality risk in people under 45, possibly through cardiovascular pathways, hormone changes, or immune system impairment.
Wow. That is incredibly stark. Burnout isn't just feeling bad, it can have life or death implications.
It really underscores the severity, and we see specific impacts in high-stress jobs. Psychotherapists with burnout report more anxiety, depression, secondary trauma, even physical pain.
Yeah.
Physicians face higher risk of mood disorders, substance abuse, even suicide. And during the pandemic, we saw burnt-out healthcare workers had much higher rates of depression, anxiety, PTSD symptoms.
It's devastating. And what about the impact on the job itself? Performance, errors?
Huge impact there, too. Emotional exhaustion predicts taking more sick days, absenteeism. Depersonalization predicts people quitting turnover. And lower personal accomplishment predicts lower job performance.
Does it matter how performance is measured?
Yes. Interestingly, when studies use objective performance measures, not just self-ratings, the link between burnout and lower performance is even stronger. Exhaustion also predicts long-term sick leave.
And in healthcare, the risks must be immense.
Exactly. Physician burnout is linked to more malpractice risk, more medical errors, lower patient satisfaction. Nurse burnout connects to lower patient safety perceptions, more falls, more medication errors. One study even suggested a potential link to higher surgical site infections.
Goodness, the ripple effect on patient care is just massive. Okay, let's shift to the positive outcomes. What happens when people are engaged? What are the benefits?
Engaged employees show more motivational benefits. They tend to be more open to new experiences, more creative day-to-day, more likely to exhibit innovative behaviors. They're learning and growing.
That makes sense. They have the energy and mindset for it.
And it spills over positively into life outside work. People report being happier at home on days they were engaged at work. It links to partners being happier too, better work-family balance, even positive effects on their children's well-being.
That's wonderful. A virtuous cycle extending beyond the office walls. What about direct job outcomes? Performance, commitment.
Huge positives there. The link between engagement and better job performance is really well established across many studies and reviews. Engagement seems to act as a key mediator. It translates resources into performance.
So resources help you get engaged, and engagement helps you perform well?
Precisely. And engaged folks are more likely to do those extra things, organizational citizenship behaviors, helping colleagues, volunteering for tasks, being proactive. They're also more committed to the organization and report higher job satisfaction.
And in caring professions.
Similar positive story. Higher nurse engagement links to better perceived quality of care, higher patient satisfaction, better overall work effectiveness. It really fuels positive outcomes across the board.
Okay, this is all incredibly clear. We see burnout and engagement, what drives them, what results from them. How does the job demands resources theory, the JDR theory, pull this all together?
The JDR theory is really valuable because it acts as this unifying framework. It integrates ideas from job stress research and motivation research. Its main goal is to explain how job characteristics influence well-being, burnout, or engagement, and how that well-being then impacts outcomes like performance.
And it also includes the employee's role.
Yes, crucially, it acknowledges that employees aren't just passive. We actively try to shape our jobs. The theory itself grew out of studying burnout, but it's broadened over the last 20 years or so, incorporating ideas from lots of classic theories.
So it's like a grand synthesis. What are its core ideas or propositions?
Okay, the first big idea, Proposition 1, is simple but powerful. All job characteristics can be classed as either job demands or job resources.
Okay, define those again quickly.
Job demands are the things that require sustained effort, physical, cognitive, emotional, and have associated costs. Think workload, time pressure, difficult interactions. Job resources are the things that help achieve goals, reduce the cost of demands, and stimulate growth. Think autonomy, feedback, support, learning opportunities.
Got it. Demands cost energy, resources provide energy or help manage demands. What's next?
Proposition 2 describes two core psychological processes. First, the health impairment process. This is where high demands lead to constant effort, which drains your energy, leading to strain, exhaustion, health issues. That's the burnout pathway.
Makes sense.
Second, the motivational process. This is where job resources fulfill basic psychological needs, foster work engagement, and lead to positive outcomes like motivation, creativity, performance, the engagement pathway.
So, two distinct routes depending on the balance of demands and resources. Is there good evidence for these paths?
Yes, loads of evidence.
Yeah.
Meta-analyses consistently support both pathways. It's even been applied successfully to things like workplace safety demands, leading to burnout, leading to errors, resources leading to engagement, leading to safer behaviors. Longitudinal studies back it up too.
Okay. Proposition 3 talked about interaction effects and multiplicative impact. What does that mean?
Right. This is about how demands and resources interact. Two key hypotheses here. The buffer hypothesis suggests resources can weaken the negative link between demands and strain.
So resources protect you when demands are high.
Exactly. Like having great team support might make a high workload feel less stressful. The boost hypothesis suggests demands can actually strengthen the positive link between resources and engagement.
Wait, demands can boost the effect of resources? How?
Think about it. When you face a challenging task, a demand, having the right resources, like autonomy or feedback, becomes especially valuable and motivating. It helps you meet the challenge. So resources are most impactful when demands are high.
Ah, I see. The resources really shine when things get tough. That's a cool insight. What else is key to the theory?
Proposition 4 talks about personal resources like optimism, self-efficacy, resilience. It suggests a reciprocal relationship. Having job resources can build personal resources, and having personal resources helps you seek out and use job resources.
A positive feedback loop.
Yeah. And Proposition 5 suggests personal resources can also moderate the demand-strain link, similar to job resources. Proposition 6 is about job crafting, how we actively shape our jobs.
Right, we mentioned that. Changing tasks, relationships, perceptions.
Exactly. We proactively try to increase resources or optimize demands. Proposition 7 suggests engagement can kick off a gain cycle. Engaged people are proactive, build more resources, seek challenges, leading to a potential upward spiral.
Love a gain spiral.
We all do. But there's a flip side. Proposition 8 suggests high strain can lead to self-undermining behaviors like procrastinating, making errors, avoiding tasks which actually make things worse.
Oh dear.
And Proposition 9 suggests this can lead to a loss cycle or even a downward loss spiral, where strain leads to self-undermining, which increases demands or depletes resources, leading to more strain.
Yikes. So upward spirals of engagement, downward spirals of strain. Very dynamic. Now the article title is 10 years later. What new things have emerged in JDR theory recently?
Several cool developments. One is really embracing a person-by-situation approach, recognizing that our stable personality traits influence how we react to daily fluctuations in demands and resources.
So my general level of optimism might affect how I handle a stressful Tuesday.
Precisely. Your general well-being can buffer daily stress, while general ill-being might amplify it. Another big step is the multi-level JDR theory.
Moving beyond the individual.
Right. Looking at how organizational factors like HR practices or safety climate influence things, how leader behaviors shape team demands and resources, and how team-level factors like shared perceptions or emotional contagion play out.
That feels much more realistic, acknowledging we work in systems. Any other innovations?
Yeah, a bigger focus on proactive behaviors, deeper dives into job crafting, including how people might try to actively optimize their demands, not just reduce them. New concepts like proactive vitality management, actively managing your energy.
Taking charge of your own resources.
Exactly. And even playful work design finding ways to inject fun and games into work to boost resources and engagement.
Playful work design. I like the sound of that.
Me too. And finally, the work-home resources model, integrating JDR with work-life balance research, how resources and demands spill over between work and home, and how personal resources connect the two.
Connecting the dots between our work selves and home selves, that's crucial. The article also mentions some common problems or misconceptions when people use JDR theory.
Just a few things to be careful about, like sometimes people might label a lack of resources as a demand, which isn't quite right, or confuse stable personal resources like self-efficacy with active coping strategies.
The little nuances.
Right. Also, avoiding the trap of thinking all demands are bad and all resources are good. They can both play different roles in the two pathways. And being clear about whether you're studying individuals, teams, or the organization.
Good reminders for researchers. Okay, pulling this all together, what are the practical takeaways? What can organizations and individuals do based on JDR theory?
For organizations, it's about proactively managing the work environment. Using HR practices to boost resources, think training, autonomy, support, feedback, and manage demands clear roles, reasonable workload, work-life balance support.
Culture matters too.
Hugely. Building a positive psychosocial safety climate. Regularly monitoring and optimizing job designs. And leaders are key. They need to facilitate resources, manage demands for their teams, and encourage proactive stuff like job crafting.
And for individuals?
It's about empowerment and self-management. Things like personalized JDR interventions, maybe negotiating idiosyncratic deals, training and job crafting skills, learning better recovery strategies away from work, building personal resources.
So a shared responsibility between the organization and the individual makes sense. Did the article reflect on what happened after their previous review back in 2014?
Briefly, yeah. They noted a big increase in diary studies looking at those daily fluctuations. More research looking at how burnout and engagement might actually predict later job crafting the feedback loops. But they also said there's still not enough research using observer ratings or objective data for demands and resources, still a heavy reliance on self-reports.
Room for growth there. And finally, where does research need to go next? Future directions.
Key areas include more rigorous testing of JDR interventions, what works best for whom, combining organizational and individual approaches. Much more focus on the team level, team dynamics, shared resources, team crafting, how burnout emerges in teams.
The collective experience.
Exactly. And definitely more research on how demands and resources from other parts of life, home, family, hobbies, interact with work, especially now, with work and life being so intertwined for many.
That feels really relevant. Okay, this has been incredibly insightful, a really thorough deep dive. So to quickly recap, we've looked at burnout, exhaustion, cynicism, inefficacy, and engagement, vigor, dedication, absorption. We've seen how job demands tend to drive burnout via a health impairment path, while job resources fuel engagement through a motivational path.
And the JDR theory provides that elegant framework connecting demands, resources, personal factors, well-being, and performance, including those dynamic gain and loss cycles, and proactive behaviors like job crafting.
Absolutely. Understanding this can really empower you, the listener, to think about your own work. Identifying risks, spotting opportunities for more engagement. It puts some science behind those good days and bad days.
It really does. It gives you handles to grasp onto, ways to potentially make work better, healthier, and more fulfilling.
So here's a final thought for you to ponder. Thinking about your own situation, what's maybe one job demand you could try to tweak or optimize, even in a small way? Or, conversely, what's one resource, maybe support, learning, or even playfulness you could actively try to build or seek out to boost your well-being and engagement?
Great questions to reflect on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into burnout, engagement, and the job demands resources theory. We hope it was valuable.
We look forward to exploring more topics in organizational psychology and well-being with you next time.